You're listening to the Served Up Show, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful content. Your hostesses, Bridget Albert, is best known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with over 25 years of experience. And I'm Julie Milroy, best known for my passion for leading change and helping others grow in their careers. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry.
Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. I had the honor and pleasure of chatting with Jen Cassetta. Jen is a nationally recognized speaker, empowerment coach, self-defense expert, and author of a new book, The Art of Badassery. Unleash your mojo with wisdom of the dojo. Her clients include Apple, American Airlines, British Airways, Nike, and so many more. Jen has rocked hundreds of stages across the country with her superpower combination of engaging content and contagious enthusiasm. She's been featured on the Today Show, Rachel Ray, and even was an expert on ABC's TV's My Diet is Better Than Yours. So sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite cocktail, and enjoy this very bold and empowering show. Jen, welcome to Served Up. I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Bridget. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell our listeners really where you got your start and what inspired you to get into nutrition and truly the philosophy of inspiring others?
Oof, that is quite the question. So I'm going to back it up. About 23 years ago, I stepped into a dojo, which is a martial arts studio for anyone out there who doesn't know, for the first time back in New York City. And I pretty much immediately fell in love. Now, even the backstory from that is my dad had been a martial artist for years before that. So it wasn't something completely out of the blue. But the minute that I tried it in my early 20s, I was just really taken by this. I was originally going just to do exercise, but wound up getting so much more. In that first year, I had some major life issues, which kind of everyone in New York City and beyond that day did. But essentially, I had this massive transformation in my life. And it started, I would say, because of September 11th, heading to work in the city that day. I was an event planner at the time. Didn't even get to plan any events yet. Showed up to my place of work, got out of the subway, essentially at Wall Street, looked up, and the World Trade Center was already hit and black smoke was coming out. I made it to my place of work. The doorman wouldn't let me upstairs. And suddenly I went in to use the phone in the lobby, and suddenly the first tower fell. A swarm of people come rushing into the lobby. Phone goes flying out of my hands. I'm completely frozen and paralyzed with fear, thought I was going to die. And this woman came over to me, and she put her hands on my shoulders, asked me my name. I told her, and she said, "Jennifer, I'm Nancy, and the two of us are going to get out of here today." Nancy and I together left that building. We were all evacuated and ran in what everyone can visualize if you were there or not, or saw it on TV, through the ashes, through the soot, from building to building, looking for a safe place, until finally I had the idea to take Nancy to the dojo, the martial arts school I had been training at. And I just remember walking in covered in ash, and for the first time that day, having this sense of safety, everything just decompressing and drinking water and washing the soot off my body and all of that. And anyway, Nancy took off, went to her family. And for the weeks and months that followed, now looking back, I realized that because of that day, because of that safe place, I dove even deeper. And now all of a sudden, it wasn't just a place where I went to exercise. It was this place where my body was getting stronger, yes, but also my mind and confidence was starting to enhance. I was working out some serious PTSD from that time on the mat. And as you can imagine, just from there, it started. I was out of a job. So I was figuring, well, what can I do in the meantime? I was actually bartending at night. My brother owned a nightclub in the city at the time. And so I was like, getting paid that cash money really well. And all I wanted to do in the daytime was go to the dojo. So I figured after a while, how can I make this some sort of income, career, etc.? And that's how it all started. Long answer.
No, it's such an incredible start to what you do now. And I would love to hear more, so take me back to the dojo, and how did that turn into your current career? How really, what was next?
Yeah. So essentially for a 10-year period from 2001 to the end of 2009, I started to build out these different practices. So I became a personal trainer because at that time, again, I was like, well, what can I do? Well, I can teach kickboxing or, kind of martial arts, but at a gym. So I went to this boutique gym in the West Village and they were like, great, become a personal trainer. I said, sure. There was no real plan. I just kept saying yes to the next opportunity. Then eventually I said, okay, well, I have a private practice essentially in Lower Manhattan. And I was training clients in their homes, very wealthy clients, and kind of getting to see how some New Yorkers live, right? It's very different than the apartment in Chinatown that I was living in at the time. So it was inspiring. It was cool. But then I realized I wanted to add more skills and tools to my tool belt. So I went back to get a certification in health coaching first at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and kind of then tied that into my offerings. And then later at the time, at 2005, when I became a health coach, no one really knew what a health coach was. So I decided I needed to go back to school to get a master's in nutrition. So that all happened pretty much in a 10-year period, where also every single day that I was running back to the dojo as many times as possible, either to train clients, teach classes, train myself, take classes. I mean, I was like literally obsessed to the point where friends and family would joke that I was like in a cult.
Oh my gosh. Well, one of the hats that you wear is an empowerment coach. What is that exactly, and how did you become one?
Yeah, good question. So again, that was a 10-year period. Then at 2009, I moved out to Los Angeles with this vision of essentially having a bigger impact on folks. So instead of the one-to-one training, how can I reach one to many? And I should also rewind in that 10-year period. I was doing all of these self-development workshops and devouring books on the subject. I went to Tony Robbins and all these different things that I can really consume. And I was, again, from my father, really, he was doing that back in the 70s and 80s, and reading Dale Carnegie and all these books that, now are the foundation of that movement. And essentially I had that vision, like, how can I do a smidgen of that? How can I have even a small percentage of the impact of someone like Tony Robbins? So the vision was to do public speaking, get out there, really spread the word. And it took me a few years from when I landed in LA to kind of getting my feet under me, having some income, still personal training, health coaching, etc. I took a little detour because I was training in places like, the Peninsula and Beverly Hills and things like that. And a couple of clients asked me to travel with them. So I wound up traveling around the world with a Saudi client for about a year and a half. So these things, again, it's that saying yes to the opportunities that sounded really phenomenal at the time. No real plan, but these visions that kept pulling me forward. Essentially, to become an empowerment coach, I just did more kinds of certifications. I have now a certification in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and just all the self-taught coaching tips and self-development work that I've done over the years. Now I would rather call myself an empowerment coach than a health coach, just because I don't want to talk about food really anymore. I want to talk about food as one part of your whole well-being, right? Food, nutrition, movement, exercise, mental health. There's so much more that that makes us whole and can give us power and happiness and joy. And I just didn't want to focus just on the physical anymore.
I love that. And I'm really glad that you are out there doing the work. You mentioned mental health, and, there is still a stigma attached to that term, mental health. And I think that we've come a longer way than maybe before COVID. And I think folks are being much more open to seeking help and maybe even realizing that, this is a real thing. And I need to maybe talk to someone. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit more specifically about that topic. It's very relevant in the beverage industry, an industry that was always seen as being super toxic. And a lot came out during COVID, and a lot of changes were made after COVID for the better. And we continue to strive, within our industry to be better to one another.
Good.
To, take more grace for ourselves. And so, as an expert in empowerment and in mental health, do you have some go-to tips that you can give?
Absolutely. And just to kind of talk on that subject, just mental health in general, why it's a stigma. Like, I feel like people hear that word and it's like, it's a stigma. It's just like physical health. We all have mental health. We all have physical health. And it's just an umbrella term to describe our mindset, our mental well-being. Like, it shouldn't be anything we should shy away from speaking about. I just, sometimes even watching the news, I hear just it thrown around in a way where it's always, when we talk about our mental health, it's always like a problem or disorder. Well, it's just like we have times where, everyone has mental health issues from time to time. Everyone feels joy and happiness from time to time. Everyone feels sad and depressed from time to time. Everyone can feel anxious from time to time. It's only when those feelings become overwhelming or we don't have the tools to deal with them is when it really becomes an issue, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And so let's talk a bit about your book.
Sure.
That perhaps could be a great resource for the listeners, The Art of Badassery, which I love that title. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Unleash your mojo with wisdom of the dojo. So how did your book come to life? What was that process like for you?
Yeah. So The Art of Badassery started as a keynote about 6 or 7 years ago that I first gave actually at a Bacardi event. They did a She Summit. They called it at first, and then they moved on. But I'll never forget the head person there at the time. The general counsel reached out and she saw online the badassery term and she was like, "That's what we want." And I was like, "Great." So that was my first really big keynote, I would say. I had it developed before that, but and so I've been doing that for years, and I always wanted to write a book, but it wasn't until January of 2020 that I decided this is the year I am going to sit my butt down in the chair and actually write it. And of course, what happened in March was our lockdown. So it actually wound up being great timing because all of a sudden all my events were canceled for the foreseeable future. And I had a lot more time on my hand to sit and write. But what wound up happening in the writing was really magical. I figured out, the Art of Badassery before that was just like these 5 steps of, self-empowerment. But all of a sudden I realized that I wanted to use the martial arts as a metaphor. So each chapter is like color coded from white belt to black belt, just like a martial artist moves through the journey to black belt. So in that, every belt level has its own theme and different exercises, but it's all related to essentially self-empowerment. It's all relatable. It's not about martial arts per se, but you get to feel what it's like out on the mat, the lessons that I learned from, the ancient wisdom of martial arts, and then how I adapt that for everyday life today.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. It sounds like a book that we all need to have in our back pocket for sure.
I would say so. I would hope so. but back to you did ask kind of help tips for mental health. And I will say that the book really addresses that. It really has nothing to do with self-defense or the physical aspect of martial arts. White belt, the first chapter, is really about embracing the suck. That's what it's called. So knowing that everyone in life goes through challenges, dramas, traumas, tragedies. I truly believe that no one gets through this life without dealing with something at some point in their life. And now I feel like collectively, we've all gone through something pretty traumatic for a lot of people over the last 3 years. So for many of us, that might have been the first big disappointment challenge. But for many of us, it wasn't, right? It was kind of like, okay, here comes a tough thing again. We got to get through this. So embracing the suck is really just accepting the fact that there are going to be hard times. And I feel like when we can do that, right, we can move through those times with a little more resilience.
That's a really good word too, resilience. You know, how do we kind of, push through those hard times? I think that's really, really interesting. And I know that you are a black belt, correct?
Yes, in a martial art called Hapkido. I got that before I moved to LA and back in 2009, and it was a lot of work.
How did you wind up, I think it's really interesting how you broke your book out, really, it sounds like based on what you've learned in the dojo, which is wonderful. And then when you dive into that ancient art, right, of movement and defense sometimes as well. Can you share more of those lessons that you learned and maybe some of the surprises that you didn't realize that you would be learning in the dojo?
Yeah, I love that. 2 things come to mind. So first, the third chapter is called Block the BS, block the bullshit, right? So at that level in martial arts, we started to really drill our blocking techniques. And because we realized that all these punches and kicks are coming at us, and if we don't block them, we're going to spend way more time hurt and on the floor than necessary. So in life, this translates to setting boundaries with people, places, and things that are just coming at us, whether that be misogyny, racism, any type of person trying to manipulate you, take advantage of you, your body, your mind, your kindness, your generosity, your resources, any of it, right? We need to set these boundaries. And sometimes it could be physical, but most of the time it's going to be mental, emotional, and verbal blocks that we need to practice. And the more we practice them, the easier it becomes to really protect our peace and our power. So I have people kind of visualize this energetic orb around you, like a bubble that surrounds you. And that is your energy. You need to protect that. And honestly, the harsh truth is it's no one else's job to protect that for you. And I feel like sometimes we feel like, well, there's supposed to be these things in society that protect us, and there should be, and there, sometimes are. But at the end of the day, right, it is nobody else's job but ourselves to protect our boundaries. So in the chapter, in the keynotes that I do, in deeper dives in this subject, like workshops alone on boundary setting that I have, I really get people present to connecting your mind and your body. I just feel like when you are physically in your body, you need to say no or anything, right? To protect yourself. You just have this tool, this really cool tool to emphasize, to make it even more powerful. So tapping into the strength of your own body when you set boundaries can really be helpful. So whether that means you have to power pose before you go into that meeting and tell somebody, back off, or no, you're not going to take my cell phone number, or you're not going to text me on the weekends, or you're getting too close or too weird or whatever it is, feel strong in your body. And I feel like especially this is a great lesson for women. And I always hate to break it down, have it really gendered, but for the most part it is. We weren't always taught to use our body in strong ways.
You really just hit on something, but we weren't. I wasn't taught to use my voice or be assertive. That came along just from the school of hard knocks, really. Yeah, so, we can help that next generation to be a little more bold in their daily life and set those boundaries, I think the world would actually be more harmonious than it is now.
Oh, completely. Because setting your boundaries doesn't have to always be combative. And I think that's what we think of at first. But setting your boundaries, I love how Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, she said it one time, and I'm just going to paraphrase, but she said, setting boundaries is like drawing a golden circle around the things that are important to you, and everything inside that circle is sacred. So it's like protecting your sacred things, whether that be, like I said, your time, your resources, your kindness, your generosity. Those are important things. So drawing that circle can be non-combative as well.
As it really should be, right? It really should be. And I do think that it's something, and you mentioned that, as women, that we do have to work a little bit harder on it.
Some of us, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And, as we're on this topic, it is Women's History Month. Mm-hmm. And I would love to know, through history, do you have any women that you really admire or consider heroes?
Oh, gosh, yes. Like the first people, I know it's always cliche, but I'm like a huge Oprah fan. Mm-hmm. I think she broke boundaries. She broke glass ceilings, not only for women, but for her Black women, especially. So she, and just what she does and what she stands for, I'm a huge fan. So many women in history that have, again, like been the first to fight for us, fight for our rights. And there's probably so many women that just didn't make the headlines, but were out there on the front lines doing that work.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely.
What are women that come to your mind when you ask that question?
It's funny. I think of like Amelia Earhart is definitely like somebody that I admire. I think that she really had some guts to be the first woman to get herself in an airplane and travel and do her thing. And I think she's absolutely inspiring. She's one of my absolute favorites. But like you said, there's so many. And then even think like my mother, who worked for Argonne National Laboratory and burned her bra when she was pregnant with me because she got fired because she was pregnant with me. So
wow.
To throw you a baby shower, we're going to throw you a bra burning party. And they did. So, when I can look in my family and then, in history as well. But I think it's an important topic that we continue to talk about, not just this month, but all year round.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do my best to also, anyone that I know, a woman that I know kind of personally or one-off, I try to buy their book. And, so I have a stack of books of people that I know that have authored books, and I want to make sure that I promote them throughout this month as women authors as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Can you tell our listeners what that moment was like for you when you achieved Black Belt?
I can just like picture it. So it's a long process. There's not necessarily a moment. I mean, there's a moment when I was handed the belt. So I'll go through that. But essentially at red belt level, which is for our school right before Black Belt, there's about a year or so. Again, depends on where you are and where you started and all of that. But at least in my school, for me, it was about a year of training for Black Belt. So to test for Black Belt, you have to volunteer at least 100 hours of teaching hours, not in that year, but throughout your whole journey, right? Because the deal with Black Belt is what I soon realized. I used to think it was about taking someone down twice my size or, executing my sword forms with precision. But really, at the end of the day, Black Belt, and I say it in the book, is all about leadership. It's about being a leader in the dojo, a teacher, a mentor, someone that helps lift others up through the ranks too. Again, that's the metaphor for the book and the keynote. And when I go and talk to organizations, right, this is what I want to remind everyone. Like Black Belt, when you're at the top, that is when you become the mentor, the coach. You're helping people. You're not just barking orders. You're not just, thinking you're the shit because you have this title now. It's your time to really step into that leadership role. Anyway, so we did that for a year, like preparing for the test. And then we had there's really two tests at my school. Again, this is not common at every school. World Martial Arts Center, and they're now in Brooklyn. So the first test was like this pre-test, and it started at 3 a.m. in the morning. You go to the dojo, you're like groggy, you barely sleep. There's drumming. No one's talking to each other. It's like this Fight Club kind of thing. No one talks about Fight Club because no one tells you, like the black belts that come before you, no one tells you what goes on in those tests, right? So anyway, to make a long story short, the test lasted about 7 or 8 hours and you're just like completely spent. I remember the sun coming out. I'm like, what is going on? Completely spent on a physical, mental, spiritual, all of it. You're done. And then you have to wait kind of weeks or whatever. And then we have another test, which is more of like a demonstration and you invite folks, etc. Before you get your belt at the end of that, I bet you weren't expecting this whole long answer.
I'm loving this because I know nothing about martial arts and I don't know what our listeners know. So I think this is fascinating. Keep going.
Yeah. So before, we do all our forms, all our sparring, all the things, and then it culminates with a fire break. So all pieces of wood are set up on cinder blocks and we all line up, and then someone lights all the boards on fire. And then, again, I can't remember exactly, but I would assume our master is what we call them in martial arts. I know it's weird. Gives us a countdown and 1, 2, 3, we all have to break through the fire wood together. And then that is the celebration. And I would say that the metaphor there is obviously, that you are more powerful than you can ever imagine. You are stronger than your mind can do things that you never thought you could. If you really, just go for it. So then ceremoniously, we're all handed our black belts and it's like, so how did I feel? I felt really fucking great.
Yes, sister.
Yeah. Powerful. Really like I can take on anything.
And you have, and it sounds like you continue to as well. Oh my God, your story is so incredibly interesting. And I'm so glad that you shared with our listeners what that is like, because I sure as hell have never been in a dojo. It sounds like I need to go to one.
Yeah.
Like church. Sounds like it's
It was like my church for many years. I miss it. I moved across the country and I just never found the right community out here in LA. And now also I got a hip replacement, so that doesn't help. But I still practice my forms. I still teach self-defense, obviously, for Southern Glazers and for lots of other companies that I've worked with and had the pleasure of working with.
I would like to talk with you a bit about when you teach self-defense, because I think it's amazing, first of all, that Southern Glazers brought you on to teach. But also I think as an attendee, it can be very intimidating to maybe sign up for a self-defense class. Yep. Thinking like, I don't need that, or what is that all about, or I'm not going to be good at that. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a bit about being on both sides? So as an attendee, how to overcome that and why it's important, and what it's like for you as a teacher to empower people to defend themselves?
All great questions. So where do I begin? I totally understand how people can feel intimidated, right? By going to these classes or checking it out. So that is why I basically developed a one-off self-defense course, right? So I took my 10 years on the mat training and said, what can I teach in an hour that would be the most effective? What can I teach in an hour that people can leave with and say, oh, I can do that. That's easy enough. I have like 1 or 2 or 3 tools in my tool belt. A couple of sound bites that they remember, like eyes, throat, groin, or something like that, right? Again, it's the obvious thing is like the more you practice anything, the more readily available it will be to you, if you ever need it. But in this case, I feel just even just a one-time self-defense class, even just learning the basics, it's not just about the physical. It's really about the mental benefits that people get from it. So maybe it's just the reminder, because the first half of it, I usually just talk about the mental aspects of self-defense, practicing situational awareness, being more aware when you're out and about, when you're on the subway platform, where do you situate yourself? where you can see people coming down the stairs as well as making sure you're not too close to the tracks, right? They're just certain little things about how you move through the world that can help you stay more safe, more aware, more alert, right? Than the usual, the easy, the thing that we see the most, which is someone buried in their cell phone, in their to-do list, on social media, not paying attention to their surroundings, which I get it. Like I catch myself doing it too. So again, if someone just leaves with that reminder to put their phone away, to take in information with their eyes, with their ears, and listen to their intuition, oh my God, that right there can save their life. You don't even have to get to the punches and the strikes and the getting out of the chokes and the holds to really stay safer in this world.
That's some really good advice. I'm going to make my daughter listen to the show. She's in college.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Her listen to it. That's great advice for anyone, right? To really be aware of your surroundings.
For anyone, no matter what you do. After the situational awareness, we talk about setting boundaries again, but this time more in a physical sense. If someone is encroaching on your personal space and they're not meant to be there, it's not like rush hour on the subway, but it's like you're walking down the street and someone's too close to you. Okay, now you have choices. What are those choices? Can you create distance crossing the street? Can you use objects in your favor? So getting in a car and locking the door, or barricading yourself in a bathroom or somewhere safe. These are things that we can just think about. It's really spatial awareness now, your body in different spaces. Then we come to, and this is all ABC, awareness, boundaries. C is communicating. How do we powerfully communicate that we're confident, alert, aware, or set a powerful boundary? So we do that with our body language, strong, fierce body language. We do that with a deep tone in our voice. We do that with the words that we choose to use, right? Both outwardly and also our inner dialogue, which is something that I get into more in the book, right? A lot, which is like using strong affirmations and telling yourself you got this, you're safe, you're powerful, you can set boundaries, right? You have options. Sometimes it really takes that to either figure out the next right steps on how to get yourself to safety, or just give yourself the courage and the courage that you need to act in a powerful way, say something in a powerful way, set a powerful boundary.
How do you feel as a teacher when you finished one of these courses?
I feel really satisfied. Over the last 3 years, I've done so many Zooms, so it's a lot. It's different. I'm not going to say it's not good, but it's different. So instead of actually seeing people's bodies and all of a sudden seeing women like stand taller and express themselves through really powerful body language, or just to see the smiles on their faces, or just sometimes they'll say like, I feel like a badass. Like, I feel like I can do anything right now. I just really learned something new that I never knew before. That is amazing. Now on Zoom, obviously it's like in the chat, I get to hear those things, but it's different. But either way, I just feel really satisfied.
Gosh, I bet you do. And what really drives you? Early on, is the dojo. You have the book out now.
Yeah.
But what keeps you going?
What keeps me going is this. Over the years, I've heard so many stories personally, like from people that have either taken my classes or reached out to me on social media, the comments I get on social media of women being used, abused, manipulated, taken advantage of, verbally, mentally, emotionally, and even physically abused. And I just get to the point where I'm like, it makes me angry. And I think that anger drives me, which I know is weird, but it really does. It's like, hey, we deserve better. I'm sorry, just because we're not men, that we shouldn't feel safe in this world. That's complete bullshit. Yeah. So if I can reach one person or many women to remind them that we're powerful too, that's the mission. And the mission just drives me. It drives me to keep going and not be safe and go get a job with health insurance.
No, I think that you're exactly where you're supposed to be on the path. And I am so happy that you spent some time with me today on Served Up. Jen, thanks, I mean, you are a powerhouse of a woman, someone that I now look up to I just met you an hour ago.
Thank you.
Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that, the journey started, on the saddest day in our lifetime on 9/11. But my goodness, look at what you did from that tragedy to today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
It's very inspiring and absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Bridget. I appreciate that. And thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. Can you let our listeners know where they can find your book, The Art of Badassery, Unleash Your Mojo with Wisdom of the Dojo?
Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and hopefully in some other little retailers near you, but those are the main ones.
Well, that's great. I know that I'm going to pick it up this weekend for sure.
For your daughter too.
For my daughter too. I keep sending her books. So I'll be getting this too in her next care package. This is going to be great. But on behalf of the Served Up family, I want to wish you some great health, Jen, and a whole lot of peace. Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Thank you. Is it 5:00 yet?
Almost.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of future Served Up episodes. Cheers!